Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Hope you guys had a wonderful week. Before we start our lesson for today, I want to share with you the topics that we will be learning in our upcoming videos. And we will be learning, as you can see on the screen, scales and modes, chords including chord progression and intervals, arpeggios, and cadences. Now, before we start talking about scales, we need to know 3 essential parts or bricks that we need to put together in order for us to get a scale. These 3 parts are, number 1, a pattern that is basically a combination of whole and half steps, aka tone and semitone, and this brings us into what we call tetrachord. So I'll be talking about those in a little bit. Next, we have the scale degrees, and a scale basically is a group of notes or a series of notes that they go in an order or a sequence, and each one of these notes has its own name or degree. So we will be talking about those too. And last but not least, the key signature. I know we talked about key signature, but it was a very small part of it. Now we need to cover more of the key signature. And it's very important to know the difference between the accidental and the key signature. Key signature is basically a group of sharps or flats that goes at the beginning of a song, and each scale has its own set of sharps or flats. And accidental is different. It's either a sharp, flat, or even a natural sign that goes before the note. Whole and half steps. So you can sometimes hear tone and semitone, both are the same. And whenever sometimes we see a W or H, that basically means whole and half, or sometimes we can see T and S, that's basically tone and semitone. But what are those? So I'll be showing you here on my keyboard what that means. So a whole step or half step is basically the steps that we take from one key to another. So if I need to go from note C to note D, this distance or step between these 2 notes is the step that we need to take. And it's usually either a big or a whole step or a small that is half step. So here on my piano, I'm going to go ahead and start on middle C. So between C and D, this is a step. And even between the white and the black keys, we can also count these as steps. Now, if I start on C and I go to this C sharp, this black key, this is a half step from this C to C sharp. This is a half step. And then when I go from the C sharp to D, this is another half step. So if we combine these 2 halves, so half and another half, I get 1 whole step between C and D. That's why between C and D we have 1 whole step. So half and another half, that's whole. If I add another half, this is 1.5, and so on. A good way to remember this, remember whenever you have 2 white keys with 1 black key in the center, this is a whole step. So for example, C and D, see we have a black key in the middle, this is a whole step. For example, F and G, see there are 2 white keys with 1 black key in the middle, this is a whole step. Another example, G and A, they have 1 black key in the middle, this is a whole step. So any 2 white notes with a black key in the middle, this is a whole step. But why? Because I already explained that, because between, for example, the C and the C sharp, this is a half, between the D and the C sharp is another half, and so on. Now there is an exception. For example, between the E and the F, as you can see, we don't have a black key. So this is a half step, it's not a whole step, because we don't have a black key in the middle. So between E and F is a half step. Same thing for B and C. We don't have a black key in the middle, so this is a half step. So if we have 2 white keys with a black key in the center or in the middle, this is a whole step. If we have 2 white keys without a black key in the middle, this is a half step. Just like E and F. See, they don't have a black key in the middle, this is a half step. If we have 2 white keys with a black key in the middle, this is a whole step. And if we have white key to black key, or from a black key to white key, this is a half step. So from white to black, this is a half step. from black to white, this is another half step. If we have, again, two white keys with a black key in the middle, this is a whole step. If we have two white keys without a black key in the middle, this is a half step. And if we're going from one black key to the next black key, for example, from this F sharp to this G sharp, this is a whole step. Why? Because from F sharp to G is a half, and from G to G sharp is another half, so half and half equal 1. So half step equal 1. That's why from a black key to the next black key is a whole step. From, for example, F sharp to G sharp, or from G sharp to A sharp, and so on. Now, a tetrachord. What is a tetrachord? So basically, it's a series of 4 notes, and these 4 notes have to have a whole half step pattern. So a whole step, half step. For example, I'll be showing you the example here on my piano. So if we have, for example, C, D, E, F. So C, D, E, F, okay? From C to D, this is a whole step. From D to E, we have a whole step. And from E to F, we have a half step. So whole, half. This is a tetrachord starting on C. So C, tetrachord, because we started it on C. Now, I'll give you another example. If we start the tetrachord on G, for example, remember, first we need 4 notes. So G, A, B, C. Now we need to check if they have the pattern of whole step, half step. Between G and A, we have a whole step. Between A and B, there's another whole step. Why? Because we have black keys in the middle, right? And then between B and C, we have half. Why? Because we don't have a black key in the middle. So whole, half. So that's another tetrachord starting on G, so we call it G tetrachord. One last example that includes sharp. I'll show you how to do it. If we start, for example, on D, I'm going to say D, E, F, G. Now I need to check, is that whole half steps or not? Between D and E, yes, we have a whole step. Now between E and F, we don't have a whole step, we have half. What do? We need to change that. What I'm going to do here, between E and F, we already have a half step. We need to add another half step to make it one whole step. So I'll be going to F sharp. And this way, this is a half plus half. So now from E to F sharp, this is a whole step. So from D to E, a whole step. From E to F sharp, this is a whole step because I can take F natural. Between E and F, it's only half. We need to increase another half, so it equals one whole step. And then from F sharp to G, this is a half step. So perfect. Now I have the pattern of whole, half steps. So whole, half. And this is a D tetrachord. And so on. Now the second part of today's lesson is going to be about scale degrees. So a scale basically is a pattern of 8 notes, or basically 7 notes, and the last one is the same note as the first one. That's why we call it octave. And if you remember, guys, we talked about octaves before, and it's basically a pattern of 8 notes, and it starts and ends on the same note. So if we started on C, we have to end it on C. If we started on D, then we have to end it on D, and so on. So this is what scale is. And we usually go from a low pitch to a higher pitch, then we go down from a higher pitch to a lower pitch. Going up from low pitch to a high pitch, we call ascending, and that means we're going up. A descending is basically when we go from a higher pitch to a lower pitch. So I'll be showing you here an example. For example, if I want to start my scale on C, and I want to go C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. This basically was an ascending because I went from a low pitch to a higher pitch, and I started on C and I ended on C. So this is basically it. And if I go back down, that's a descending. So first I'm going to go ascending, then descending. C, then I'm going to go back down. That's basically a scale. And each one of these notes has its own name or degree. And as you can see on the screen, the first one we call tonic, then supertonic, mediant, subdominant, dominant, submediant, leading note, and octave or tonic. We can call it octave because it's basically one octave and it's the last note, and C are basically the same. So whether you call it tonic because it's the same as the first note or an octave because it's the last note, both ways work. So that was it for today's lesson. A quick recap, we talked about whole and half steps and how to create a tetrachord out of these steps. We also talked about scale and scale degrees. And stay tuned for my next video because we will be learning about key signature and we will be learning about the types of scales. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!